Good morning. This is Pastor Barbara, aka Preacher with Parrots. Today is September 6, 2015, Sunday morning. On Sunday nights, we're in the New Testament. On Wednesday nights, we're in the Old Testament. But on Sunday morning, we do whatever I feel led to do. We've been studying what in some languages pronounced the Levirate law. I've always pronounced it the Levirate law. And it pops up a few times in the Bible, and I decided to do a study on it. We're going to be in the fourth and final lesson today. For those who study the book of Ruth, you have a minister that preaches in the book of Ruth, he will maybe mention that law and give you a paragraph or two of what it is. There is an instance in the book of Luke where it is mentioned, and the name of the law isn't even mentioned. So people were trying to ask a question of Jesus that they thought the answer to it would benefit their position, the Pharisees, in an argument with the Sadducees, and vice versa. Where we really learn about the law is in the book of Genesis. Since this is the last lesson, let me go briefly over the first three. The first one, if you haven't seen it, and it's probably the most important or the second most important of the four lessons. It is one of the most misunderstood portions of Scripture in the whole Old Testament. Unfortunately, I don't have up on YouTube that lesson so you can review it. I don't know if I can get to it this afternoon or this evening. I will try to get to it this week. I said that last week and things came up. I'm a minister and things happen. People get sick. People need me. And then I got things too that sometimes interfere with what I would like to do. But I will try to get it up within the next week. And you will find it. You go to Preacher with Parrots on Google. It will open a number of options. Choose the option that says Preacher with Parrots on YouTube. Click on that and look for the Levirate law number 1. In that law, we have the explanation of the difference between, and this is the most misunderstood, between onanism and a medical term called early withdrawal. And because it's misunderstood, a very, very simple law is turned into a bunch of things that it does not address. One being birth control. Yes, what happens is, in effect, birth control, but it's not about birth control. It's not about what for years was misunderstood and called onanism. They finally now got the correct name, and if you check out something on a search engine, you have about a 50 to 60% chance of getting what you're looking for. 15 years ago, you had a 10% chance of finding what you were looking for. But because it's the most understood, it has nothing to do with birth control. It has nothing to do with self-gratification. But it's misunderstood, and people will use the Bible to try to prove whatever they're trying to prove. But it does explain the law. Our second lesson had to do with the same woman, Tamar. She was owed a male child by the passing of her husband. And there's an incident with her father-in-law. That one is in the wrong. As I told you, I have 4 accounts on YouTube. It's in the wrong one. It's in the one called Captain McClaw. And sometimes you get to that one by checking Barbara Schulten. I'm going to try to have it brought over into the correct Preacher with Parrots. The third one, which we had last week, is the first 3 chapters of the book of Ruth, which is 4 chapters long. So what we're going to do now is give you a quick review of the first 3 chapters, do the 4th chapter, and then talk a little bit about what the New Testament says. Now, for those that have this on the video, you can write this down if you wish, because you can back up your video. Those that are on the live program can. Hi, Larry. I'm glad you're here. Larry, if you'd like to back up and give guests chat privileges, you can. I'll leave that up to you. Our first lesson was in Genesis 38. If you continue in that same chapter and you get to the incident between Tamar and his daughter-in-law, you will get to our second lesson. I want to read just something from Deuteronomy 25. Because it mentions this law. Why would I want to bring it up now if I haven't brought it up before? If we're already in the 4th lesson and I haven't brought it up, what's in Deuteronomy 25, why would I bring it up now? The reason is this. When we're discussing something that's in the Bible and we're talking about, is it right, is it wrong, is it something believers should do, is it something that displeases God or makes him happy, does God have anything to say about it in the Bible? We usually ask ourselves, is that under law or under grace? When Moses went up on Mount Sinai and God gave him the 10 Commandments, which God wrote with his own finger in tablets of stone. And then the rest of the time that Moses was up there, God continued to give him the law, and he continued to write it down. We call that the law. The law that God gave Moses, or the Mosaic law. That doesn't start until the book of Exodus. Exodus means to go out of. In the book of Exodus, God uses Moses to bring his people that had been in Egypt for 400 years. They went in as a family of between 70 and 90 people. A family of Israel or a family of Jacob, depending which of his names you want to use. And the people feared them and enslaved them. And God used Moses to bring them out. As soon as they got out and worshipped him, Moses went up on the mountain, and now we have a nation. And God gives Moses laws for this nation to live by. So when we talk about being under law, we're talking about being under Moses' law. At the moment that Jesus hung on the cross, he uttered 7 last words. my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Is one. I thirst is another. The very last thing Jesus said was, it is finished. At that moment that Jesus said, it is finished, the veil in the temple that God had Solomon build so he could be correctly worshipped and served. The veil, made of several curtains that separated the Holy of Holies from the rest of the world, was ripped in two. And we entered a period known as grace. Right now, our relationship with God has nothing to do with laws on a mountain. Our relationship with God has to do with our relationship with Him and what we do with the fact that He died on the cross for our sins. So usually when preachers are talking and we're saying you should do this, you shouldn't do the other, vice versa, we're talking about Moses' law and a period of grace, where the New Testament gives us information on how we should serve and how we should live. Well, the first two instances are lesson number 1, where we have Onan and his wife in Genesis 38. This is before Exodus. Before Exodus, we have no law. So what are we talking about? The law says if we have no law. Well, we've always got law. From the time mother says, you do that and I'm going to smack you, you've got a law. You've got somebody that's made up a law and intends to enforce that law. So it's one of these instances which, although a preacher may say there's a law that says such and such, it's not Moses' law, and it's not Jesus' law. Well, what law was it? If you Google the Levirate law, Levirate law, you will see that there are 25 to 45 countries that have within them people that practice the Levirate law. And there are certain, for instances, in it. This was a law that many people, there were people on earth by the time Abraham is producing Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. By this time, there are other people on the world too that we don't have any information about. They've got laws. It's just not God's people. There are other people on the earth, and many, many countries of them then, and a few have people in them now that still practice the Levirate law. It's for people that live in a clan. People that don't want to go out of their clan. Now, the Jewish law has certain, don't go out of your clan. Don't go from Israel to Moab. Don't go from Israel to Edom, because those people don't serve God. And if your daughters marry them, pretty soon they'll be over here and they'll have us not serving God also. That's how things work, by the way. You go out of your country, out of your family, out of your group that's protecting you. And you are there for people who are different from you to throw their darts at and try to convert you to become like them. More recently, we have people coming into countries, like certain European countries and the United States, and wanting to make us like them. That's been recent. So I want to read, I have read already Genesis 38, but let me read Deuteronomy 25. When the brothers, now this is within Moses' law. These first two incidences, we have no law of Moses yet. We have a natural law that different people in different parts of the world came up with. But nothing like, don't do that or you won't go to heaven type of a law. But now we're in Deuteronomy. And while we don't have an incident there, I just want to read it so you'll see the three different series in which this law takes event. I see within each feature. When brothers live on the same property, remember when Grandpa had 1,000 acres and he gave each one of his kids 50? And one of the boys would marry and he'd go over in this corner on his 50. And now Grandpa's got 950 acres. And another kid marries and goes over here and so forth. All right, when brothers live on the same property and one of them dies without a son, the wife of the dead man may marry a stranger outside, may not marry a stranger outside the family. When you look at Genesis 38, you say, oh, they're going in the family. They're doing it in the family. Well, he's saying you can't go out of the family. God took a law that already existed and made it his law. You can do that. Kids do it all the time. Girls get married. All the time they're growing up. They say, when I'll have kids, I'll never do what you're doing to me, Mom. They get married. They have kids. The kids exasperate them. They have no clue what to do. What do? Just what their mother did. We do what we learned. Sometimes what we learned is not the best thing. But I found myself doing things that I said, boy, when I grow up, I'll never do that. I found myself doing it. Why? Because it's all I knew. I didn't grow up in anybody else's household. I grew up in mine. And I didn't know how other people, now you get older, you study, you see other things. Some people change, some people don't. They continue on as they were raised. When two brothers live on the same property, the wife of the dead man may not marry a stranger outside the family. Her brother-in-law is to take her as his wife, have sexual relations with her, and perform the duty of a brother-in-law for her. In other words, this is a new, one of the newer, when I say newer, I'm saying last 20, 30 years. This is a Holman version. This is a good version. NIV is a good version. New King James is a good version. And if you understand it, King James is an excellent version. This says brother-in-law. The older versions of the Bible call it a near kinsman. It means the male relative of yours who has more likely than any other male relative the same DNA you do. Well, you stop and figure that out. It's going to be your brother because he's going to have your mother and your father. That's going, so this version says brother-in-law. The older version says near kinsman. Well, if you don't have a brother, this could be a cousin, but that would be one half of the DNA would be represented, and so forth. To carry on the name of the dead brother. Now, there's another reason. There's the main reason is to carry on the name of the dead brother, so that he wasn't born and died. And I know my grandma and grandpa had 10 children. My dad was born, and the next two died as children. One at about age 5 and one at a few months. we only occasionally, somebody mentions Sally. And there in the graveyard where my mother and dad are buried, there's a stone. But that's the end of the two of them. Well, so that a man has somebody to carry on his name, so that he is more than a name on a tombstone, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. I'm not preaching on this today. I'm mentioning it because it is also in the Old Testament. It is also about the Levirate law. And it is also the law as it was at the time of Moses. Our first two lessons were about the Levirate law, when they were only a law that men made up. If the first son she bears will carry on the name of the dead brother, so his name will not be blotted out from Israel. Just the first son. But if a man doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law, she must go to the elders, and this is important, because now we are dealing with the law of Moses, and today's lesson deals with the law of Moses. This is the law of Moses. If a man doesn't want to marry a sister-in-law, she must go to the elders in the city gate. You know everything happened in the city gate, right? You know that, right? All decisions were made. Judges went there. Kings who also acted as judges, they went there. Everything important was done. It was City Hall. If a man doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law, she must go to the elders of the city gate and say, my brother-in-law refuses to preserve his brother's name in Israel. He isn't willing to perform the duty of a brother-in-law or a near kinsman, if you are used to the older versions of the Bible. The elders of the city will summon him. Hey, you, over here. And they will speak with him. If he persists and says, I don't want to marry her, then the sister-in-law will go up to him in the sight of the elders. Remove. Here's the sister-in-law. She goes up to him. She removes his sandal from his foot and she spits in his face. She will declare, this is what is done to a man that will not build up his brother's house. And his family name in Israel, this man who's got a name, we don't know what his name is yet, because all we know is that he's somebody's brother or a close relative. And he said, no, I don't want to marry her. But he's got a name, right? His name is about to change. She spits in his face and she declares, this is what is done to a man who will not build up his brother's house, the house of the man whose sandal was removed. And I put a picture on Facebook and on Twitter. And I mailed it to myself. I've got two different cameras, so let me give you two different shots of this. She spits in his face, removes his sandal, and he's not known as John or Jim or Bob or Herbert. He is known as the man without a shoe. I guess I did actually give you a fairly good picture of that. All right. Now, we have no lesson there. For today's lesson, we're going to go to the book of Ruth. It is such a little book that I'm flipping through real fast and I'm missing it. I'm going now page by page. Joshua judges Ruth. I'm in Samuel. I missed Ruth again. Here we go. All right. Here's where we ended last week. How long? It took me 25 minutes to summarize the first two lessons, plus give you the additional information on this law as it pertains to the law of Moses. Now I'm going to get to what Jesus has to say about this law, which is very little, because he's not interested in this law at all. What he's interested in is that two people are trying to trick him, and they don't like each other, and they're trying to use him to settle an argument. Jesus isn't going to have any of that, but the subject comes up, and I think, having done that, we were pretty much, I don't recall ever hearing of anybody doing a series on the Levirate law. But because it is in the Bible, and you know, supposing I had so many questions on the Genesis 38 onanism type thing, I think people think that's the only place in the Bible that's mentioned. I don't think people read these, maybe a little bit on Ruth, but it's such a long romantic story over 4 chapters, and it has to do with somebody changing their religion and their family, and it's romantic, and it has to do with the bloodline of Joseph, the husband of the Virgin Mary. There's his genealogy in the New Testament as well as Mary's, and it has so much to do with it. I don't think most people realize that it's in the book of Ruth. So you get Genesis 38 and people think that's it. Oh no, there's a whole lot more to it. And that's how, when somebody asks me a question, and please don't think, you know that I don't know it all. Please don't think that I think I know it all. Because if I did think that, I would be deluded. And every day I learn something I didn't know the day before. And I want that to keep happening. But when somebody asks me something about Scripture, I say, what does the whole Bible say about it? So we're pretty much covering what the whole Bible says about the Levirate law. All right. We have Naomi and her husband Elimelech, because of the famine in Israel, going to Moab, which is right across the Jordan River. Their 2 sons marry 2 Moabite women. Naomi's husband Elimelech dies. Her 2 sons die, leaving 3 widows, one of them old, 2 of them younger. The old one says, the famine must be over in Israel now. I'm going to my people. There's nothing for me here. My husband is dead. But I have relatives, and my husband has relatives in Israel. One of the young women, Ruth, says, I'm going with you. Wherever thou goest, I will go. Thy people will be my people. Thy God will be my God. She's basically converting from whatever her religion was in Moab to the religion of Israel. And she's saying, Oh yeah, I've got parents that are from Moab, but I've got my mother-in-law who is Israel. I am applying for a visa. I'm changing my religion. Your God will be my God. I'm changing my nationality. I can't change my history, but I can change my nationality. Your people will be my people. So we go through 3 chapters where Ruth guides her into the custom of the Jewish people. First of all, we have to eat. Now, they live near Bethlehem, 10, 12, 15 miles, 12, 14 miles from Jerusalem. And he has a lot of land, and he's wealthy, and he's elderly, and he's not married. And I shouldn't say elderly, he's older. And he's not married. His name is Boaz, and he's rich, and he owns this land. Now, Naomi, mother-in-law, schooled, knowledgeable about the laws of the Old Testament, is now telling Ruth how she is to behave. She is reminded of the law that as they go on the outside of the field, the workers of a field, and they're harvesting, and they go around the corners, they are to purposely allow some of the grain, whatever it is they're harvesting, ears of corn, you name it, to fall to the ground. That means that the poor are allowed to go onto that property and pick up the grain and use it as food or sell it and buy other food with it. But that was one of the ways that God took care of people in those days who didn't have a job. So Naomi guides Ruth to the right place. And as we ended our last week's lesson, which was lesson 3, Naomi tells younger Ruth he's going to be threshing. He's going to sleep. He will probably have something to drink. He'll get tired. He'll make a bed right there on the threshing floor. You sneak in the middle of the night and you lay at the foot of the bed. You take a little piece of that blanket and cover it. You're not going to take a little piece of covering and covering all of you, but you take a little piece of that blanket and you cover yourself with it. I'm emphasizing the word here, covering, as you would use the word protection. Cover yourself with it. He's going to wake up. He's going to say, "What are you doing here? This doesn't look good. You're a widow. I'm your boss. I'm in bed asleep. What are you doing down there?" And Naomi tells Ruth, as a Moabite, she wouldn't know this, but he is in the family of the dead husband, making her also in the family of the dead husband's son, this woman's widower, or this woman's deceased husband, of which she is now the widow. You say to him, "You are my kinsman redeemer. You are a close relative who can redeem me get me out of this horrible situation I'm in. She wouldn't have known that, but Naomi knew it. And Naomi, when Naomi gave her these instructors, Naomi knew any Jewish male is going to know exactly what those words mean, and he will know exactly what he's supposed to do. So as we closed that chapter, this is what she did. She went to her mother-in-law, Naomi, who asked her, "How did it go, my daughter?" And Ruth told her everything the man had done for her, and she said, "Give me those 6 measures," because he gave her as a gift some extra grain. The 6 measures of barley, because she said, "Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed." See, he's inheriting a mother-in-law too. But if it hadn't been for the mother-in-law, then Ruth would not be on the scene. "Wait, my daughter," she said. Now you realize it's daughter-in-law, but she's calling her daughter. I call everybody my child or my sister, or they have names for people we feel close to. I'm Aunt Barbara. The more people you will know, because that's the way it is on the mission field. You don't call elderly people or people who are older or are your parents' age by their first names. But you're there in another country and you feel very close to them. You're in the same work. You're from the same country. So I'm Aunt Barbara Timmer, and Facebook hasn't figured it out why so many different people are my nieces and nephews, and they're not related to each other, so how can they all be related to me? Facebook is working on that one. Wait, my daughter, until you find out how things go, for he won't rest until he resolves this today. Now, where were we left before chapter 4? Boaz went to the gate in town. That's where all business is taken care of, and he said, "I'll take care of it today." And he sat down there. Soon the family redeemer, Boaz, as far as we know, he's it. He's family. Soon the family redeemer Boaz had spoken about came by. Boaz called him by name. He had said, "There's a closer relative." Remember, I said that the newer translations use the word brother, because you can't get a closer blood relationship than brother. Male with the same mother, same father. You can't get much closer than that. But you can get a little bit farther away. You can get a male cousin. You could get an uncle. Wait, my daughter, until we find out how things go today. For there is one who is a closer kin than I. So this man showed up. Boaz called him by name and said, "Come over here and sit down." He went over and he sat down, and Boaz took 10 men of the city's elders, and he said, "Sit here." And they all sat down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's Boaz, and there is the man who is a closer blood relative yet than he. "Sit here." They sat down. He said to the Redeemer, this would be the one who is the closest blood relative, "Naomi has returned from the land of Moab and is selling a piece of land that belonged to our brother, our relative, Elimelech." I thought I should inform you. Ah, he's interested in the daughter-in-law. But the daughter-in-law could be seen as a Moabitess, and probably would be if you didn't want to marry her. Now, Boaz is interested in his daughter-in-law. But the closest blood relationship here would be that of the mother-in-law. I should inform you, by it, and in the presence of those seated here, and in the presence of the elders of my people, if you want to redeem it, do so. You can now buy with your money, if you've got it. We don't even know if he's got it. We know Boaz has got money, land, people that work for him. We don't know about this guy very much. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. Here's some land. Pay for it. Then that land will go to assist this widow. But if you do not want to redeem it, tell me, so that I will know. Because there isn't any other than you to redeem it. I'm the next after you. It's me and you, brother. You have first at it. But if you don't take this opportunity, that's probably a good word to use, then I'm going to take the opportunity. I want to redeem it, he answered. There, I'll buy the land. Then Boaz says, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you will also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the deceased man, to perpetuate the man's name on his property. When you get the property, you get the widow, who happens to be from Moab. Now, under our law, you must give the widow a male child. The child legally becomes the property of the dead man. And the child becomes the heir to the property. So the money you're putting out to get the property gives you the woman to whom you must give a child who will become the legal heir of this property. You get what's going on here? If you do not want to redeem it, so that I will know it, because there isn't anybody but me. I am the next after you. And he says, I want to redeem it. The Redeemer says, the person who's been called out and said, you're the next again, I can't redeem it myself, or I will ruin my own inheritance. I spend money for it, I buy it, then I'm required to give someone a child who becomes the heir to the property. I will be doing away with my own inheritance. I will have taken money and given it for property that now is no longer mine. Now I've got nothing to inherit. Take my right of redemption, because I can't redeem it. That's what Boaz wanted. Smart guy. Good man. In an earlier period in Israel, a man removed his sandal. Now, I gave you this picture before, but let me bring the picture up again, if I can do it here real quick. I sent it to myself as an email. This is the man holding up a shoe at the city gate. I have to be careful I don't get reflections here. So we have a man at the gate. The Redeemer removed his sandal and said to Boaz, "Buy back the property yourself." And Boaz to the elders of the people, "You're witnesses. Today, I'm buying from Naomi everything that belonged to Elimelech. Chilion and Mahlon. So I am buying, this is interesting. You got to follow it carefully. I am now buying from this elderly lady. She's a woman. She can't do this. She can't make these transactions, but I'm making them with these dead men. She's the only living one. She can't do anything with this property. Only a man can. But I am buying, and all the people sitting here in the town hall, that's the entrance of the city at the gate, are witnesses. Everything that belonged to Elimelech, Chilion and Mahlon. I will also require Ruth, the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, to perpetuate the deceased man's name on his property. By this time, Ruth's too old to have children. But her son's widow, he likes her. He was already checking out, who is this good-looking, hard-working young woman who takes such good care of that old lady? He was already checking her out. There's nothing wrong with doing what you're supposed to be doing and good stuff happening as a result of it. I love this story because he's doing what he has to do according to the law, and he's getting a fantastic wife that he loves and she loves him. Why can't there be romance in it as well as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? You know, some people, if they're not sneaking around, they think it's not romantic. You can be well within man's law and God's law and have a lot of romance going on in your life. So he, because Naomi is too old, he is going to give a son to the daughter-in-law, and that property will belong to the heir of Ruth's husband. I don't have a problem. He's got a lot of land. Now he has the woman he loves. Now he has to give her a child. Now she's not another woman in a harem, which many people had many wives because, frankly, some of them had nowhere to sleep, nowhere, they were too old, they were elderly. Somebody married them just so they'd have a place, a roof over their head and 3 meals a day. Some kind men did just that under the laws in those days. So that his name will not disappear among his relatives or from the gate of his home, you are witnesses today. The elders of all my people were at the gate, said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman go who is entering your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel. Isaac's children, Isaac's wives. May you be powerful in Ephrathah and famous in Bethlehem. May your house become like a house of Perez, One of the twins. The son Tamar bore to Judah. Remember last week's or week before lesson? When the wife pretended to be a prostitute because Judah was not giving his final son to her. Speaking of that one. Because of the offspring the Lord will give you by this young woman. I'm going to repeat that. Listen to this. Because of the offspring the Lord will give you by this young woman. Ruth will have offspring that are going to be important. Yeah? You better believe it. Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. When he was intimate with her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women said to Naomi, because the midwives, the women are around helping with the birth, praise the Lord, who has not left you without a family redeemer today. Kinsman redeemer is the older biblical versions. May his name be famous in Israel. This little baby you just had, may his name be famous in Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. When you're old, he'll take care of you. That's another reason that these women had to have male children. Because when they were too old to work, there was no Social Security, there was no system. Their male children took care of them. So women tried to have several male children. Your daughter-in-law, who loves you, is better than 7 sons. Love is great. If you think being old and having 7 sons to take care of you, he's saying her love is greater than 7 sons. The women said, a son has been born to Naomi. Naomi didn't bear a son. Naomi's daughter-in-law did. Naomi didn't have a baby. She got a grandbaby. And they named him Obed. Okay. Boaz has a son with Ruth. His name is Obed. He's the father of a man by the name of Jesse. And now we're 2 generations away. Remember when Samuel, and God talked to prophet Samuel, the one that had been a little boy in the temple, the first prophet in the Bible, and God said to him, there's a man by the name of Jesse that has a son. I want you to go anoint him king. Remember the story? And Samuel goes and he checks out all the sons, and God doesn't speak to him about any of those sons. And he says, you got any more kids? Yeah, I got a younger one out in the field. So bring him in here. Jesse, you got another kid? Boaz and Ruth have a son named Obed. Obed has a kid named Jesse. Prophet Samuel goes to Jesse and says, you got another kid? Because you got a kid God's going to make king. And it's none of the ones I've seen so far. You got another boy? Yeah, out in the field. Bring him in. He's a shepherd. What's his name? David. The father of David. And now we've got just a couple of genealogies here, and I'll read it so that we will have completed the book of Ruth. Perez fathered the neighbor women said, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now this is David's genealogy. Perez fathered Hezron, Ram, who fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nashon, who fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz, who fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse, who fathered David. That is the end. Now, not quite through. We're going to go to the New Testament. We are going to go to the book of Luke. Well, I found Luke faster than I was able to find Ruth. And we're going to chapter 20. Just wanted you to know, until Jesus died and said, "It is finished," and the veil in the temple ripped in two at that moment, other things happened. There was an earthquake, some graves opened, some dead people came alive. They walked all over Jerusalem. People that knew him said, "Oh, I see you were dead and now you're not." All of those things happened. But until that moment, God's people were under God's law, the law of Moses. Now, Luke 20. One day he was teaching in the temple. You know, there were scribes and Sadducees and Pharisees. These were all people that knew a lot about God's law. Scribes knew a lot because they were scribe from escribir, from scribe, somebody who wrote things down. No printing machines, so every person made one copy at a time. That was a scribe. If 10, 12 hours a day you wrote, copied books, copied things from scrolls, you learned a lot. So scribes knew a lot. Well, what do we know about Pharisees? The Apostle Paul, that wrote most of the New Testament, brilliant, was a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Letter of the law, knew everything there was to know. About everything, actually, but especially about God's law. And there was another group called Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were religious, but not in the same way. You know Catholics who are religious and are daily participants of Mass? That's religious. And then you've got other people that go off to other countries and leave their families behind and preach the gospel to people they don't even know. That's another kind of religious. So the term religious could be interpreted many ways. So the Pharisees were religious. Sadducees were religious. They were having a discussion among them. The chief priests, the scribes, the elders came up and said to Jesus, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Who gave you this authority?" Jesus, what makes you think that your word is the last word, that what you say is truth? He said, "I will ask you a question." You should answer a question with a question. "Tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or men?" Jesus asked them a question they dare not answer. Why? For the same reason that they could not answer, they could not arrest Jesus during the day near the temple. all the people loved Jesus. Had the Roman soldiers gone in debt, the rest of the people in Jerusalem would have overpowered them. They needed Judas to tell them where Jesus was going to be at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He was popular. He was well loved. John the Baptist was well loved by people. And now Jesus said, John the Baptist, his message, was it from heaven or did he make it up? He couldn't answer that. Number one, couldn't answer because they didn't believe in baptism. And number two, they didn't dare say anything against John the Baptist. So then, these smart people, they discuss it among themselves. If we say from heaven, they'll say, well, then why didn't you believe it? But if we say from men, the people will stone us because they think John was a prophet. Well, he was. He was prophesied the last 2 verses in the Old Testament, the last verse in the book of Malachi. It says a great prophet is coming to announce the day of the Lord. So then they said they didn't know. And Jesus said, I will not tell you either by what authority. I think I'm supposed to be reading from a different gospel. Just a minute. So instead of wasting your time, let me just tell you. And then perhaps at the bottom, when I publish this video, I will put the scripture that I thought I was reading you in there. They came to Jesus, and it had to do with the Levite law. And since Jesus had not yet died on the cross, and the veil of the temple had not yet been torn in two, they were under the law of Moses. So they came up, the same group, scribes, Pharisees, Sadducees, looking to ask Jesus a question he can't answer. Listen, it happens to me all the time. Somebody tries that. Can you imagine how many times people must have tried this with the Lord? They said, now, tell us what's important here. If a man dies before he has a son, and his younger brother marries the widow, and he dies before she has a son, and another younger brother, and they do this till they have about 7 or more. The question is, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? Because they have all been her husband. Jesus did exactly what he did in this other incident I read to you in Luke 20. He brings up a topic about which they themselves are divided. And that's the resurrection. And Jesus said, well, don't you know that in the resurrection, there's not going to be husband or wife? When Jesus returns and takes us, let me use a friend of mine as an example. She had a loving relationship and children with a husband who passed away. Number of years went by. She met a man who had had a loving relationship with his wife. They had children. His wife passed away. So my friend and this man she met have been married now for, I want to say, 20-some years. In heaven, whose wife will she be? if things in heaven were like things are down here, there would be two men saying, but she's my wife. She was faithful to each of them. She loved each of them. That would be making heaven a place of confusion. And Jesus answered, don't you know, in heaven, people will be like angels. Angels don't reproduce themselves. There are no husband angels, wife angels. They don't die. So all the angels that were created when God created them all are still alive. And since they don't die, there's no need to reproduce more angels. Well, that shut them up. I just wanted you to know that it does come up in the New Testament. And when I publish this, I will put the scripture on it. Now, if you'll excuse me over here on the live broadcast, just long enough for me to close the recording. We're 1 hour and 6 minutes and 50